Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be filming my November TBR. So I have a couple different categories we're going to go through for this video. The first category is going to be favorites as well as books that I think are going to be 5-star predictions. So November is my birth month, so I thought I would celebrate by reading both books that I already know I really love and books that I think I'm going to love a lot. The first one kind of needs no introduction, but that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This book I wanted to read for a annual reread in September, but I didn't get to it then. So I figured I would read it in November for my birthday. This book is probably one of my favorite books of all time. I really enjoy everything about it. The first time I read it, I listened to the audiobook, and since then I finally got a physical copy. So I'm really excited to read through this physically and do a full annotation system and go through it that way. And hopefully it will bring me just as much joy with the second reread as it did with the first. The next book on this list is one that is a 5-star prediction, and that is the third volume of the Skunk Bill and Self-Saving System. The first 2 volumes I both gave 4 stars, and while I did enjoy the story, it wasn't necessarily anything super standout. But I have heard that the third volume in particular is probably the best out of the series, and a lot of people said it really blew them away. And I'm really excited to see what happens in this volume and just get back into the world. I kind of have been more involved with MXTX's other series, Modal Zushi, for the time being, but I do really want to finish this series. And the 4th volume, which is all of the short stories that came after the fact, comes out on my birthday, so I figured that I'd like to read this before that volume comes out. So I'm really excited to read this in the near future. The next book I do not yet have physically because it is not out yet, but that is A Restless Truth by Freya Marske. This is the sequel to A Marvelous Light, which is a book I read earlier this year. The first book in the series was an MLM romance, and I really enjoyed it. But the second book has potential to be even better than the first one in my opinion, because it has a WLW relationship. The overall plot is historical lesbians in a murder mystery type situation. And honestly, it sounds so perfect, and I'm really excited for it. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to pre-order the physical version or get the audiobook when it comes out. And they really said gay rights by having it come out on my birthday. So those are the 3 books I want to read that are part of the favorites category. The next section are some of the nonfiction books I want to read for Nonfiction November. This is also part of my long-term goal to read more books from my personal library. And I just have had quite a few nonfiction books that I have purchased and was interested in at the time but just haven't gotten around to. So I figured pushing myself to do it in a month that focuses on nonfiction is the perfect time. I have more nonfiction books, but I'm only going to choose 2 for this TBR. The first one is iGen by Jean Twenge. This book, I believe I heard about through the book How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. I think this was one of her primary sources. If not, this is a book that's very similar to another book that was one of her primary sources. It's basically a book about how millennials and Gen Z have grown up while being on the internet. It was very much a topic I was interested in, and I was going to get it from thrift books, but then I ended up finding it at my local thrift store. And I can't really pass up a $1.50 good deal, so I decided to pick it up. And hopefully this book will be good. I feel like nonfiction, though, especially ones that talk about things related to the internet and technology, they can get outdated pretty fast. So honestly, I don't know even how much this is relevant to the newer crop of Gen Z that has come up. But hopefully it will still be a good read and also quite relatable. The next book on this list is So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson. Oh, there's a huge rip in this book. I didn't even notice that on the front. And the premise of this is that it talks about public shamings in regards to internet public shamings, but also about the historical context of shame and its relevance to the human experience. This type of book feels like it's a little bit more timeless because even though it's talking about public shamings in regards to the modern era, it kind of reaches back and talks about that throughout all of human history. So it feels like it could be still applicable even if the way they're describing public shaming doesn't necessarily still happen today. And yeah, this book looks really good. I've had this book for quite a while, and I definitely want to get to it sooner rather than later. Okay, the last set of books that I want to talk about for this TBR are books that are kind of going to transition me from November into December. And that is that I'm really interested in reading some more atmospheric thrillers. I just feel like those are the perfect winter time books, so I wanted to start to put them on my TBR for November, and if I don't get to them now, I'll just continue to read them in December and January. The first book on this list is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This book I think is a domestic thriller about a couple that was having marital problems that go to kind of a remote cabin in the woods and then get stuck during a snowstorm. And some things have come out about their relationship and some secrets that they've both been hiding. I don't know if this is them versus each other, them versus the environment, or them versus an outside force that's going to come in. I remember watching a booktuber I liked had done a vlog including this, and they seemed to really like it. And I found this at my library in a $2 pile for sale. And again, at that kind of deal, I figured it would be good to pick it up. This is another book that I do not know if I'm going to keep after I end up reading it. Obviously, if I really like it, I'll keep it, but since it's a thriller, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of rereadability for me. So depending on how I like it, I might end up passing this along in a little free library or something. And the last book on this list is The Lightkeepers by Abby Jenny. It's set on a remote set of islands where the main character is a nature photographer who is photographing the rare animals in the area. A person that is living there ends up dead, and then it's kind of like a whodunit amongst the members of the island to try and figure out who is the killer. I believe this book also deals with sexual assault, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to handle that section. Depending on how it's done in the book will kind of determine how I progress through the rest of it. But at the same time, I'm very interested. I think there's also a lighthouse on the island, and obviously with the name the Lightkeepers, that gives me the impression that there's going to be a lighthouse. I've said this before in other videos, but lighthouses are kind of a weird niche interest of mine. So with a title like this, I was definitely intrigued to pick up the book. This is another one I got from my thrift store for $1.50. It's not one I've ever seen talked about on BookTube. I think it's a little bit older, from 2014. Just the physicality of the book is really beautiful, but overall the premise is something that I'm interested in enough to give it a shot. And yeah, this is another thriller, so depending on how I like it, this might be another book that I pass along to someone else in the near future. So these are all of the books I'm planning on reading in November. I don't usually have so many hardbacks, and this is incredibly heavy right now. I'd love to know in the comments down below what the #1 book you want to read in November is. But that's it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!